Change News.
This is Voice of Change Radio News. I'm Amanda Kumalo. A quick look at stories making the headlines. President breaks 23-year diplomatic standoff with UK. In business news, government engages industry on price hikes. In regional news, Zimbabwe, Kenya want deals to be fruitful. In sports news, lead Chevrons all-rounder misses ICC award. The news in detail. President Mnangagwa's engagement and re-engagement drive has broken a 23-year-old diplomatic standoff between Zimbabwe and the United Kingdom, a development that bodes well for bilateral relations and investment inflows into the country. Following the imposition of illegal economic sanctions on Zimbabwe at the turn of the millennium by Britain and her Western allies, the country was frozen out from London and other Western capitals. But all that changed when President Mnangagwa headed to the United Kingdom for the coronation of King Charles III last Friday. Zimbabwe is inspiring African countries to transition to heritage-based education 5.0 model, shifting away from the colonial education system that has maintained a biased status quo in favor of developed nations. Anchored on the adoption of disruptive innovations to produce goods and services, the country's heritage-based education 5.0 is one of the transformative strategies embraced by the Second Republic. In the past, the country's universities were teaching Education 3.0, whose thrust was teaching, research, and community engagements. But with Education 5.0, higher and tertiary institutions are now focusing on innovation and industrialization. In business news, the government has engaged the private sector over the arbitrary escalation of prices, which has put most basic commodities beyond the reach of men. There has been a significant increase in the prices of basics such as meal, sugar, bread, cooking oil, among others. While prices in the United States dollar have relatively remained stable, prices of goods pegged in local currency have increased, with many retailers using the parallel market rate to determine prices. Yesterday, Industry and Commerce Minister Sekai Nzenza appraised the cabinet of the situation with regard to the price and basic food supply situation. To mitigate the situation, the Ministry of Industry, along with the Finance and Economic Development Ministry and the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on Monday, held a meeting with concerned stakeholders, including manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, and other associations on the matter. The resuscitation of Kwekwe steel giant Zisco Steel is progressing well and is set to commence soon following the engagement of a consultant by the strategic investment partner to drive the project. Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services Minister Senator Muchangwa yesterday told journalists at a post-cabinet briefing that Strategian Company had been engaged by Kuvimba Mining House as the lead consultants to drive the resuscitation of Zisco Steel. Under the mining project, Kuvimba Mining House will initially invest $1 million into the steel-making plant. The process will commence with the sale of 5 million tons of iron ore fine stockpiles at Bushkwa Mine in Berengwa district of Midlands Province. In news beyond our borders, the inaugural mid-term review of the Zimbabwe and Kenya Joint Permanent Commission ended yesterday amid calls for the implementation of agreements made in various areas that include foreign affairs and security, economic affairs, and social-cultural issues. The MTR ended with the signing of the minutes of the meeting between Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Ambassador James Manzo, and Ambassador George Orina, the Director General, Bilateral and Political Affairs in Kenya's Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. And finally, in sports news, led Chevrons cricket team star all-rounder Kelly Ndlovu fell short of winning the ICC Player of the Month award for April, which was eventually won by Thailand's keeper Narumelo Chaiwai. Chaiwai made victorious from Kavisha Edugeg of UAE in the voting process and became the first Thai player to be named ICC Player of the Month. That brings us to the end of this bulletin.
Voice of Change News.